and I found this acting school, this bizarre acting school. It's like out of an episode of The Avengers. This place is like a Georgian mansion in the country where this bizarre harridan ran this sort of institution for idiots and weirdos. And my teachers, she was the boss, and she was like the Maharishi Mahesh Yoga or something. She sort of floated through the grounds like some weird ghost figure, and wearing these weird Indian clothes because she'd just been back from India, you see. And then she had her instructors, my two instructors. Their names were a man and a woman, Yanis and Janet, and they sat at the front of this room, and there was a big fireplace at the front. And she was like the worst bull dyke on earth, although she wasn't, but she acted like it. And he was like a biker, and they both dressed in leather, and they would scream at us for hours on end. We
this
were
is
like,
true?
Oh, it's absolutely. And we would just quiver on top of everything else. I mean, we were quivering partly because it was so cold, but also because they were so horrible to us, you know. And she'd smoke these cigarettes and flick the ashes in the fireplace and sort of scan us over every morning and say, "Now, what have you been up to?" And she said, "I want some changes out of you students. I want you to look different from now on." And it was kind of weird. It was a very bizarre place, and we did really weird things there. We did these long improvisations that would last a week, where we had one where we all dressed like in this 19th century gear, and we had pack sacks, and we had a huge covered wagon and these two horses, and they got us this, they found us this 10 or 20 acre farm in Essex, and we went there, and we had to travel as though we were traveling through Western Canada in the late 1800s, overland for 5 days in this mud and snow and slush. And they stole our horses the first night. It was an improvisation, but it was like this real-life episode, and we camped every night. We would camp out and make fires and make food and stuff like that.
Did that experience help you in your first professional acting role?
Well, if you want to know the truth, my first professional, in fact, it was the worst hindrance it could possibly have been, because I was so intense. And I was like, and this was my first job, and I got it like practically the minute I walked out the door of this place. I came back to Vancouver via New York and Montreal and a few other failures, and I came back to Vancouver, and some people had set me up. Some very good friends of mine knew that I needed work, and they knew a director who was looking for a guy to play a part. And I happened to, well, this was a director friend of mine. He's a friend of mine now, but he was looking for this kind of character, and I happened to dress that part that day just by accident. He liked the way I looked. He thought I looked very British. Of course, I'd just been in England, so he kind of decided right on the spot, without testing me or figuring me out or auditioning me or anything, that he wanted me. So he brought me over to Victoria, and I was the worst person on earth. I mean, I was like, it was a completely wrong casting. I may have looked like that, but I certainly wasn't that kind of person, whatever he was looking for. And then he wanted to fire me like about 3 times. And we would sit down, and he was the nicest man on earth, but, you know, and obviously he was going through a great deal of pain because he didn't, you know, it's hard to fire somebody, especially in theater, you know, I mean, it doesn't say a lot for you. So he'd say, "Morris, I don't think this is working out, so I think maybe," and I would I'd just burst into tears. I'd say, you can't fire me. This is my first professional job. I mean, it'll just finish me. I'll be ruined. So we went through this about 3 times. Twice, actually, and then I was fine. I said, "I'll do anything you want. I'll do it exactly the way you want it. I won't change anything." He said, "Okay, don't change anything. You just do it this way and this way only." So I kind of got on the stage, and I got through opening night, but I was still, my mind was just like working overtime, and so I went away for the weekend, because it was in Victoria, and I went to Vancouver, and I came back, and on the ferry on the way back, I had this inspiration that maybe this character I was playing was like James Joyce. I don't know why I thought this, but I started to get this really sort of affected kind of weird idea about what this character would be. So I arrive, unbeknownst to me, he's at the show that night. I arrive and do the show that night with this sort of bizarre characterization that was right out of nowhere, and then he wants to fire me again. So I said, no, I'll never do it again. And it was a nightmare.